Joining us right now, a guy that everyone knows here in these parts in Toronto, former TFC coach, and a guy that still resides here, Bob de Klerk. Bob, welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anthony.
Pleasure's all mine. Bob, first and foremost, let's talk about your time here in Toronto as an assistant under Aaron Winter. Talk about, I'm sure, the highlight for you and Winter was that night here in Toronto, jam-packed at Rogers Centre against the LA Galaxy. I'm born and raised here, Bob. I've never heard it that loud. Talk about the emotions, talk about the game, and still what means so much to you.
Yeah, first of all, it was a pleasure, of course, and an honor to work for Toronto City. Great city, great fans, fantastic. I have to say, especially the game against LA in the Rogers Centre, I think it was the most nicest experience for everybody, especially the win. When you go to the final, you go to Mexico, that's great. I have to say, the lack of knowledge of the MLS, I think that kills us at the end. And overall, I had a great time in Toronto, and that's why I went back to Toronto, by the way.
Yeah, Bobby, let's talk about that. You said the lack of knowledge of MLS. And I had on Enzo Concina. He is with Bologna in Serie A. We had him on last week. He was an assistant coach with DC United 2 years ago. And then last year with the Montreal Impact, they went almost all the way. They lost on that unbelievable night in Montreal to the Mexican side, but it was an unbelievable ride. And he as well talked about people not understanding from other parts of the world MLS, understanding the travel, understanding the player development, on and on. What would you look back and say to yourself today, Bob, that you would have did differently under Aaron Winter as a group, looking back now?
First of all, I think you need to know a little bit more about the culture, about the background, how they work, how they used to work over here. We thought after our meeting with Klinsmann, we can bring in our knowledge and start working the way we worked in the Netherlands or in Europe. But that's not the case. And I think at that moment, not only me, but also Aaron, should be more open-minded to learn also from Canadian culture and MLS culture. I think that's the huge thing that I think that we have to do at that moment, needed to do.
Bob, let's talk about that time when you were there. Obviously, the travel must have shocked you, going from Toronto to Vancouver, Toronto to LA, on and on, mentally, physically, and you were an assistant coach. So can you imagine on the players that are coming from overseas, like a Danny Kouvermans back then, and on, Torsten Frings? To them, it must have been a shock.
It is, yeah, it was also, and I still have very good contact with Torsten and Danny, and they say exactly the same. It's a huge impact on the players. And it surprises me that, for example, Jovinko, with all the respect, that it takes so long that he is injured now, because he played all the games. That's unbelievable. But it's a huge impact on the players, and not only on the players, but also on the staff. And if you know that before, you work in a different way than we used to, and we wanted to do at that moment.
Bob, I want to ask you your thoughts on this. I've been following MLS since day one. I've been following the North American Soccer League way back. And I have still yet to see a club have an identity. What I mean by that, I don't have to explain it to you, but to the people out there is, we know the identity of Barcelona. We know the identity of Juve. We know the identity of Real Madrid. We don't know an identity here in MLS. No club really has a specific identity. Is this needed moving forward so that people understand when you play TFC or LA Galaxy or Montreal, there's an identity of style of play?
At the moment, there's no style of play. I think it's more about, the strength of the league, the power. I think that the MLS is related of American football. And I think the European football, Barcelona and that style, is related from the street soccer. And that's the huge difference. You play on the street football, and over here, it's more about the power and the strength. That's why you don't really have an identity, what maybe we, as European background, wanted to see. But most of the American or the Canadian people maybe want to see a lot of entertainment, and entertainment is also maybe long balls in the box and fight for that. That's a choice. I don't see an identity that I want to see, but that's my personal opinion.
Bob, let me ask you this, and I want you to be brutally honest. I want you to be as transparent as you can. You've worked at MLS. You've watched a ton of games now. You've worked in Europe. You've traveled the world. Yeah. What does the Canadian player lack that you believe in your mind is still maybe a touch or two behind the American player? Is it the physical aspect? Is it the mental? What is it? Because we keep seeing that the US of A, I've said this, Bob, and I've said this to many people the last 4 or 5 years. I truly believe in my heart of hearts, the USA will get to a Final Four World Cup in the next 2. I might be crazy, but I believe that. Where in your mind do you feel the Canadian player lacks that they're not there with the American player?
Yeah, I think it's not only the player. I think the whole environment in the U.S., everybody's got a plan, everybody's got an idea, and everybody got a goal to be the best from the world, want to be the best of the world. So everybody is behind that plan. Everybody's behind Jurgen Klinsmann. All the clubs, the federations, everybody. They're bringing coaches from national teams from other countries. They're bringing coaches from other countries to become better. They build facilities to let the players play and become better. I think in Canada over here, I'm working now for 1.5 years over here, I see a lot of talent. 100% there is talent. But at a certain moment, the pathway for those players stops. Because where can they go? You only have 3 or 4 really professional soccer clubs. And then is that the best choice for them also? In the US, you have more options. So I think the big difference is more the opportunities for the US players to grow to a professional level.
So then that tells me this, Bob. That tells me simply this, and I'm working with many behind the scenes and trying to do what we can, and now League One Ontario has succeeded in 3 years in existence. Kyle Larn with Orlando City and a few other players that have gone on to success. But I believe then a Canadian league, coast to coast, or in many of the most important provinces, is important for Canadian coaches and players for us to finally have our own league, our own identity to compete with the U.S. and Mexico. Do you agree?
Yes, 100% for sure. 100% for sure. Yeah, you need to do that because otherwise you need to rely on a league in the MLS or in the US. And I think a country like Canada, with all the people, multicultural people from Portugal, Italy, Poland, everywhere, use the knowledge of all those people. And for sure you can grow. You can grow, but don't rely on somebody else.
Well, I agree with that, Bob, but you've been here 1.5 years and you've been working in the youth clubs and in the grassroots movement. I've been working in the grassroots movement for 25 years plus, and I still see it today. Everyone believes they have the right answer. No one wants to work together in unity. Too many people think that they have the recipe to success. Everyone says that I did this way back in my homeland. It was right. Here I can do it. So I believe it's a deadly poisonous mix.
True. Absolutely. That's the biggest problem, and that's what I find out over here. A lot of politics, and everybody's fighting with each other. And if you bring out your own opinion and you're open and honest, that's not what they like. And it's more about it's their own crowd. It's stand in front of the development of young players, and that surprises me. There are so many rules also. Instead of let the boys play, let them develop and let them become better. That's more and more important. But I think, as far as I have the contact with Tony Fonseca and Gary Miller with the OSA, they have a plan and they want to go somewhere, but you never can build it in 1 year or 2 years. So hopefully they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, but Bob, let's be honest. If they have a plan and people aren't following that plan, the plan's not going to work. And you know this coming from a soccer-rich country, that if that plan is not followed from the young ages, from the coaches to the administrators, you're going to fail and falter like Canada has. And so the key question is this to you, Bob. Again, why aren't people following the plan? Whether they agree if it's right or wrong, then I would say everyone get together, we have a massive town hall meeting, everyone puts their opinions aside, and we all say, look, we need to do what's right for the country, let's do what's right and put everything aside.
And it starts, in my opinion, with all the respect, the Canadian national team, I think you have to renew at a certain moment plays. With all the respect, because I think it's great, fantastic when you're 35, 36, or 37, you play in a national team, but you never reach the World Championship. So then you need to make a plan for 6 or 8 years. You say, oh, you know what? Now we start building. In 8 years, we want to reach the World Championship. So then I find a coach, look for a coach who can do that, work 8 years with those players, with the other coaches, to bring them to a higher level. Then you have a long-term plan. Otherwise, you always stick with your own team, with your own group. Yeah, you're never going to reach it. If you can't reach it now, you never can reach it in 4 years with the same group.
No, and I agree with you 110%, Bob, and I couldn't agree with you more. Look, there's big games coming up against Honduras, in September for Team Canada. They know what's at hand. They understand the last time they played there, they got absolutely destroyed. It was the worst game in Canadian soccer history. So I believe this time around, I believe they're going to do everything in their power to get a result. And if it fails, let's hope it fails 1-0 or 2-1 and not like the other way. I can actually accept that. But I agree with you. I think, the buck has to stop with the player too when they put on that Canadian jersey and they have to say to themselves, we have to change the direction, the journey of Canadian soccer with getting us to the World Cup. I agree.
I think players like Osorio, Kyle Becker, the younger guys, give them a chance. If you don't give them a chance, you never know. If you continue what you're doing, if you don't succeed, you know that you're never going to succeed.
Last question is this, and then we'll let you go, Bob. We appreciate your time. We talked a lot about players, but we haven't talked enough about young Canadian coaches. And I'm starting to see a more passionate, hungry, younger minds here in Ontario and in Canada that want to improve themselves. Many young guys go overseas to learn. Many guys are going to Ireland, England, you name it, to get their licenses because they're hungry. They want to make a difference. They want to make a profession for themselves. Do you see that the Canadian young coaches can actually make a difference if they're taught in the proper environment overseas and then bring it here? Or do you believe that it's too much of an uphill battle for them to have success?
No, I think that you can. I believe in that. The only thing is all the restrictions that they have, let them be themselves also. Let them come up with their own ideas, their own identity. But I like it when they have the passion and go overseas to get the license and come back with that knowledge. But use it. I see a lot of good coaches. I see good coaches. I see good players. Give them the opportunity. Give them more the space. I think then you can succeed with each other.